And we just keep building. Now that we know what congruent figures are, we can talk about midpoint and bisector. Let's begin with the definition of a midpoint, and that is the point on a segment that divides it into two congruent parts. So now knowing that segment AB is congruent to segment CB, we know that point B is the midpoint of our segment. And now let's talk about bisector. A bisector is a point, lie, ray, segment, or plane that divides a figure into two congruent figures. There is no symbol for bisector, so we'll just use the word bisects or bisector. So a segment bisector is a point, a segment, a ray, or a line that intersects a segment at its midpoint. So notice that a segment's midpoint is also a bisector of the segment. And really simply, an angle bisector is a line or a ray or a segment with an endpoint on the vertex of the angle that separates the angle into two congruent angles. So let's try this really quick. We know that Q is the midpoint of segment PR. That tells us that segment PQ is congruent to segment QR. That allows us to say that PQ is equal to QR. If segments are congruent, then their lengths are equal. Now we can start writing an equation. We have segment PQ here, which is 6x minus 7, and we have segment QR here, which is 5x plus 1. Now doing some simple arithmetic, subtracting 5x from both sides and adding 7 to both sides, we find out that x is equal to 8. Are we done yet? No, because we need to find our values here. Segment PQ is going to be 6 times the 8 that we found for x minus 7. That is going to equal 41. Then we have QR, which is going to equal 5 times the 8 that we just found, plus 1, which is going to equal 41. Imagine that. The lengths are the same, just as we knew over here from the fact that Q was the midpoint and segment PQ was congruent to segment QR. K, the angle addition postulate, tells us that segment PR is going to equal segment PQ plus segment QR. So segment PR is going to equal 82. So now let's try this with an angle bisector. Ray AC bisects angle DAB. Now before we even go on, let's quickly draw a figure. We have angle DAB, and then we have ray AC that bisects that angle. So it makes two congruent angles. So if the measure of angle DAC is 58 degrees, what is the measure of angle DAB? Those red arcs tell us that angle DAC is congruent to angle DAB, which tells us that the measure of angle DAC is equal to the measure of angle DAB. Oh, well, geez, the measure of angle DAB is 58 degrees. Easy enough?